Thank you. Thank you so much, Julie. And I'm just really happy to be here. I have been making the rounds at different departmental meetings. I've met faculty in so many different spaces and opportunities, classroom visits, our study abroad fair, things like that. So this is just another way that I'm really excited to connect with you all and provide an overview of education abroad, but also to do a little bit more of a deep dive into what some of the activities are that we do and also that we support. And I'll do a few brief call outs right now in a loving way. First is we have Monica Calabritto here as well, who in a little bit will share about her experience as a faculty member leading a faculty-led program. And I'll note that, of course, Julie also previously co-led a program with Monica. So both of them are some of my wonderful existing collaborators. And then I also see in our participants list Professor Carolyn Sun from our nursing program, who also has now, since I started at Hunter, run 2 trips abroad with nursing students. And if you actually look at that photo of our students who look like they're nursing students in a clinical setting, they were in South Africa this year. They were actually there in January, as well as you can see on the bottom towards the lower left, Monica with her students on the Italian Renaissance program this January. And I'll do one more call out as well to Jennifer Newman, who I know is in the library staff, but has also collaborated with Professor Maria Hernandez Ojeda on a COIL project, which I'll talk about later, that manifested in a trip in person. And that's actually at the top of the screen. Second from the left, our group of students in the Canary Islands with Maria. So we have lots of folks on this call who I know can speak to a lot of different aspects of education abroad already, which makes me very happy. And quickly, I do want to start with actually a bit of a poll. So I don't know if Lena, if our amazing ACERT person can launch the first poll. I think I can as well if you guys can. Let me know. Let me see. I'll actually launch it from here. Okay. So first question, what's your experience with study abroad? Is your suitcase packed, but you're new to this? Are your airline points starting to add up? Do you have so many passport stamps that you need to get extra pages sewn in? Which, very sad side note, the State Department no longer does that. You have to get a totally new passport if you run out of pages, alas. So yeah, if you guys could pop your answer in that poll. Wonderful. I'm starting to see some responses come in. Fantastic. Yeah, this just gives me a really good sense of my audience today and where we can sort of focus the conversation. Wonderful. Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody. I see most folks have responded, so I'll end the poll there. And it looks like a pretty big majority of folks who are new to this. So I'm really excited to help you with that. Okay. Really quickly, do a couple more. Areas of study abroad. What are some of the areas you're interested in learning more about today? Please feel free to, I think you can select multiple. We are going to cover a lot of territory, but I just would love to get a sense of like, where are folks looking to see today? Like, what are some of the things you're really interested in? If it's one area or multiple. Fantastic. Excellent. Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing kind of a broad interest across all of the areas that we're looking at, which is wonderful. Lovely. Okay. I'm going to end this poll. Great. All right. Last question. Hopefully this is a really, really fun one. Quick, short answer. If you could get on a plane tomorrow, where would you go? Where would that destination be? I don't know if I can see the answers, actually. It's a good question. Julie or Lena, are you guys seeing the answers?
We're not seeing them yet, but I feel like when we end it, hopefully,
Hopefully.
yes, we don't see them coming in. And as co-host, we can't participate, so I'm sitting on my answer here.
Nice.
But I do
Wonderful.
see a lot of people who are willing to jump on a plane.
I know, I know. All right. I think I'll end the poll and going once, going twice, ending poll. All right, let's see. View details. Oh, wow. I have to sign. Ooh, okay. All right. I'm going to just do a quick run through. Bali, Japan, Greece, Italy, Dakar, New Zealand. I haven't thought about it, but too many places I'd like to go. Anywhere, but primarily Italy, as it's the country I know best. New Orleans, also agree with that. I'm going in May. Shanghai, somewhere in Central or South America, perhaps by the water. Ooh, I love these. These are fantastic. Okay, excellent. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to jump back to my presentation here. All right. So as you can see, we all, I think everyone who's here, we love this study abroad opportunity. We love education abroad. We love getting our students out there. I think that's really such a crucial part of what we do. I'm super passionate about this work, which is why I'm here. And as you see from this array of photos, these are all photos from my tenure at Hunter, which is fairly short. I started in May 2022. These are all students who have gone abroad since May 2022. So we're really thrilled to see programs back up and running. My first year was a lot of rebuilding. My first year was a lot of just getting the program structure back in place. But now we're in this really lovely and exciting place where we can start to enjoy the foundation and build from it. So jumping into the next elements, just a quick overview of what we'll cover today, introductions and the overview, some of our current study abroad programs that exist already that students can join, developing new faculty-led programs. What does that look like? What are the steps that you need to take? COIL, talking about the collaborative online international learning opportunities, which are virtual, but can sometimes manifest or turn into something in person. And then finally, international research collaboration. So we will cover these areas. And again, we can deep dive later on into any of these topics after today's presentation as well. This is our team. This is our study abroad team. It is myself as director, and I have a pretty phenomenal program coordinator named Emma. And the two of us are really the core team. Emma is part-time for my office, but also part-time for Office of Prestigious Scholarships and Fellowships. So she works in both camps. And it really helps as well because there's a lot of continuity and communication between the two offices as a result. So we are doing, I would say, important work to sort of streamline, a study abroad student into a Fulbright recipient or a study abroad student into a recipient of a future award. And we also are trying to collaborate on awards for students to go abroad as students as well. So there's a lot of lovely collaboration happening there. This is a photo of me in Marrakesh, Morocco, and Emma is in Cinque Terre in Italy. This is just, to give you a sense of places that we love to go. I love Morocco very much and want to go back soon. We have a few Morocco programs. Just covering the overview of what we do. So our office, primarily we're here to administer and manage the Hunter study abroad programs and exchanges. I'll talk a little bit about program types in a few slides. But we do have a few programs that are very much under our sole purview. And so we manage everything soup to nuts, whether that's booking hotels for faculty-led programs or ensuring that our exchange partners from international universities feel supported and communicated with and nurturing those relationships. So there's a lot of programs that we manage pretty much in an all-encompassing way. But for the programs that we don't manage, so this might be with another CUNY school, this might be with a study abroad provider partner, we definitely advise and assist students with their program selection, their application procedures. If there's a visa required, we help them get it. Scholarship opportunities, as I touched upon, that's a cornerstone of what we do for Hunter students, is help them find scholarships outside of existing financial aid. We also help them navigate the course selection process as well as health and safety planning. So all of these elements come into sort of our day-to-day work. We do prepare students with pre-departure orientations. So regardless of the program they embark on, we actually run pre-departure orientations for all program types for all Hunter students going abroad. So usually that happens twice annually, every May, and then every November, December, for the following term, we are preparing students to go abroad with these intensive orientations. We also assess and mitigate risk, and we liaise with CUNY Central, as well as, of course, the provost's office, the VP of Student Affairs, as well as external partners such as our insurance provider, which also serves as a, sort of on the ground risk management consultant as well. So we are always looking to assess and mitigate the risk of international travel. And we really liaise with a lot of different partners and collaborators in that arena. And then the last bullet point I'll mention here is that we serve as a supportive liaison between students and all of the departments involved in study abroad. So that includes, but is not limited to, of course, financial aid, the registrar's office for credit transfer, the bursar, especially when we run programs, we're working with them a lot, advising, academic advising to make sure students' programs fit in their academic plan, and as well as all of our academic departments, which is why all of you are here as well. We collaborate in program design and implementation. We also collaborate. Maybe you're supporting a student who goes abroad. Maybe you're signing off on their course approval form, but you're not running a program. You're still involved in that assessment process. So we definitely have lots of touch points around Hunter and across CUNY, in which we're a liaison for students, for faculty, also for fellow staff. So what does that look like in reality? I just did a quick slide to say, what does this actually mean? Lots and lots of student advising. Emma and I have lots of in-depth conversations with students about where should you go, why, for how long, do the courses fit, all of that intensive advising. And I will say it's also going far beyond academics. It touches on students' identities. It touches on, if I am a Black student and I'm going to this country, interacting, interfacing with different cultures, or if I'm an LGBTQ plus student, those sorts of questions come up all the time in our work, and they're really important when we're working with students, helping them prepare adequately, so they feel really equipped to encounter a new culture, no matter what culture they're encountering. Pre-departure orientations, as I mentioned, international partnerships. I also welcome delegations and have visits from our partners and visit them as well abroad. We review our applications. We're doing agreements, contracts, student support. That really takes on a student affairs sort of realm in our work. Program design. We're trying to do reentry sessions. So we try to get students when they come back and help them really apply the experiences they took abroad to their future steps. So is that going to be translating it to a resume or an interview for a job or graduate school? We're really trying to close that loop a little bit more tightly. We had a really great reentry session this January, so I'm encouraged by that. Departmental collaborations, as I mentioned, event planning. We also welcome inbound exchange students from our partners. So we have every semester a cohort of about 20 to 25 students from abroad that we specifically foster and work with because they're coming from our partners abroad. And of course, we also are marketers and outreachers with communications plans. Emma is our Instagram guru and our brand manager. So we do a lot of that work as well, as I'm sure you do. And accounting, we work, of course, with all of the financial aspects of planning these programs as well. So that's just a bit of like, what's the day-to-day look like for us? So I did this graph of numbers of students who've actually gone abroad. This doesn't reflect applications. Often we get a higher number of applications than you're seeing here, and then we see a little bit of attrition every term. If you'll notice, there's that red line right down the middle, and that's to indicate there are some years missing. You will note they are winter 2020 to fall 2022. We know what happened in those years. There were a few students who did study abroad on an independent petition only basis through CUNY Central. But those numbers, unfortunately, they did not add up to the numbers that we usually see. So I did exclude them. But as you can see, we are, I would say, for the most part, tracking what we saw before the pandemic happened. So the numbers, since I've started again, fall 2022 was our first sort of full swing term. We've certainly seen an increase in applications. And I would say as of today, our applications for summer programs are actually quite high. They're at 110, and our applications for fall programs are at 50. And what I have noticed is actually a slight decrease in attrition in the past few terms, which I'm very excited about. So we do see the numbers are coming back. They're steady, but you'll see these kind of crazy ups and downs. This tells us that our winter and our summer tend to be more popular for Hunter students. Short-term programs are just in general across the board more attractive for students. I think there's lots of reasons. One of them being academic continuity. They can really, fulfill all their Hunter requirements while also doing a brief study abroad in between semesters. But also I think cost comes into it as well. So those are sort of my two main, theories on the popularity of short-term programs. But we are seeing, if you notice, spring, fall, and spring. So starting with spring 2023, fall 2023, and spring 2024, those numbers are actually climbing for our semester-long programs, which I'm excited to see because, we do want to encourage those semester opportunities as much as we can as well. To speak a little bit to program types of what the existing programs are abroad. So as I mentioned, there are these sort of different categories of program. There are the Hunter programs, which are, we have currently eight semester or academic year exchange programs with university partners in Australia, Germany, Japan, the Netherlands, Spain, and the UK. So those are the destinations where we have university partners that, again, send us students every semester and we send them students every semester. We are always open, I should say, to expanding those partnerships, especially if there is a university abroad that, has a lot in common with Hunter, whether that's about student population or whether that's about research areas or academic areas. So please feel free to speak to me anytime if you feel that, there's a university that I've collaborated with that I think would be wonderful to start establishing an exchange. Happy to talk about that further. Faculty-led programs, those are short-term winter or summer programs. As I mentioned, I'll get into that later, so I'll save the longer spiel for a bit. And then there are also field trips and spring break trips. Those are non-credit experiences that, of course, faculty can lead and have led. As I mentioned, Maria Hernandez Ojeda in the Spanish and Romance Languages Department brought students to the Canary Islands in November for about a week. And that was part of a presentation that they did at the Universidad de Las Palmas de Gran Canaria, that is in the Canary Islands. But they also took the opportunity to visit the university, to visit the sites of the local city, and really be inspired and be involved in the community there. So that is certainly something that we can also explore. Not everything has to be for credit. There are certainly different stipulations when it's not, but that is an option we can discuss. And then just to touch again on the other types of programs that exist. So of course, other CUNY schools have their own study abroad programs, which really opens up the number of programs for students to, first, we're getting to a low hundreds when we look at all the CUNYs. And then if we include SUNY, which also has other study abroad programs, as well as all of our affiliated study abroad provider partner programs, we easily surpass 200 programs that students can consider to study abroad. And then when we encompass even further external program providers, and these are just a few examples of study abroad providers that are out there, but with whom we don't have a written, agreement or partnership, that really brings us to the 300s and beyond in terms of the number of programs that students have to choose from. There are so many out there, which, as an office, our job is really to curate this list as best we can, which is why we have only a few affiliated partners. That's the third bullet point down. Those are our 5 affiliated partners. Those are the ones we really work with consistently for many reasons, whether that's cost or program fit and design, or just partnerships that happened over the years. But we definitely do our best to really find the best fit for students. And that's why we have this advantage of the breadth of programming available. And at the same time, we always try to balance it with partners that we know and that we can work with really consistently and frequently. I just want to mention briefly, in terms of risk mitigation, some of the things that we really are guided by. CUNY regulations do govern all of our decision making. So CUNY Central plays a really key part in helping us understand the global landscape and make decisions about, should we keep a program, cancel a program, what's the security profile on the ground. Of course, we always consult with the CDC, Department of State, and World Health Organization in terms of their warning levels and recommendations for different destinations for all CUNY travel. So this is applicable for you, even as an independent researcher abroad, or if you're leading a group of students, or just for students going abroad. There is insurance coverage that we have as CUNY. It's a CUNY-wide policy applicable to all international travel. And you, again, can benefit from it as well if you are doing research independently or with students. So that's just an existing coverage that we all have. And in addition to that, for risk mitigation, we really work with all of our partners. So that might be, let's say if it's in London, Queen Mary University of London, which is our primary partner there, we're always discussing with our partners, what is the security landscape on the ground? What are students experiencing? Things like that. And we also wrap in risk mitigation on a personal individual level to our pre-departure orientations. So we talk a lot with students about when they're encountering, again, this new country, this new culture, what are some of the ways they as an individual can stay safe, can be prepared, can, make the right sorts of decisions to keep themselves safe when they're encountering individual situations. And of course, I just want to, be really clear that we have lots of advanced protocols set in place. If we do need to pivot, whether that's to a different destination or to a virtual option, these are things that we certainly prepare for. And I would say even are more cognizant of course, because of the pandemic. It's something that our field really got accustomed to doing. And so now we use those tools as we move forward and as we sort of assess situations on the ground as well. Before we jump into faculty-led programs, I do want to ask if anyone has questions about just sort of the general study abroad profile, the programs we offer, and then I'll shift to faculty-led programs. All right, I will shift to my next phase, which is talking about faculty-led programs. So I'm really going to focus on the process of new programs and how you would design a new faculty-led program. So a faculty-led program, as I've alluded to, it's that short term, which really means, let's say, 3 to 4 weeks program. Typically, it's 1 3-credit course that you as Hunter faculty are teaching abroad. So why might you be inspired to do this? There's a destination that really makes sense for the coursework that you are trying to teach students. There's a collaboration you have with a university or with a local organization that you really want students to see on the ground. There is a destination that again has maybe historical or cultural importance, right, for the academic content. So there's lots of reasons why you might want to bring your students abroad. You might want to teach your class abroad. And that is something that we really love to see. And I will say that students at Hunter find these programs to be extremely beneficial for multiple reasons. One of them being that these are Hunter registered courses. So it certainly allows students to fulfill a requirement. Maybe it's going to be a flexible core requirement depending on the class. Maybe it's a major or a minor requirement, or it could be a general education requirement depending on which course you instruct. But it definitely helps students to really they'll fulfill a requirement and they'll get to be in Italy or Japan or Uganda. It gives them so many opportunities to do that in a very unique way. And the other reason is it certainly builds community. And I imagine that some of what I say, Monica might share in some way or another, but it allows you as a faculty member to connect with students in a way that often might not happen in the Hunter campus. And I'll add that it also allows students to connect with each other in a way that doesn't always happen at Hunter. I have had students come back from these programs and give the feedback that I never thought I would meet, this kind of major or that kind of student, or, I didn't get the chance to do that since I've been a student at Hunter, and it really allowed me to connect. So I have really seen the benefits of that community connection, both with faculty, with students. And in addition to that, sometimes it turns students from maybe a sophomore interested in your subject area to a major or a minor. We've also seen that happen a few times. So it's certainly a way for students to start off being intrigued and then turn into a major, which is really phenomenal. In general, so the process for this, right? You have an idea. You're like, okay, what do I do with this? There is a proposal process. And typically it goes through a few different layers. First, you want to talk with your own academic department. Make sure that your proposed course and ideally a tentative syllabus just gets approved, reviewed in a very, I would say, general way from your department, right? This is not the curricular review that we're talking about at the Hunter level. This is just department approval. Once you have that, and you want to bring it to our office, there is a proposal form that you'll complete. I will review it first and we'll have a conversation. We will have definitely a back and forth of some questions. Let's look at the logistics. Let's look at the structure. Let's look at the timing. We will have a nice discussion. And then once we feel really confident in the model, we will actually bring this to the provost and the provost will review it. And once it gets provost approval, our very last step, which is by this phase usually pretty short, is CUNY Central approval. They have to approve the program as well. And once we go through all of these steps, then we get into the fun part of planning the program, really getting into the weeds about logistics, excursions, course content, all of the details. But just to give you all an overview of that process. And I will say too, I have a lot of brainstorming conversations with faculty as well before any formal steps are taken too. So if this is an idea you want to pursue, all you need to do is reach out to me and we'll have a one-on-one. I've done several already this spring, which is exciting, where we just brainstorm. And it's certainly not a commitment by any means to this, but I do want to say that it is a large undertaking, and I think I'll also let Monica speak a little bit to that in a bit. But it's something that I think is high input and high reward. That's really how I view it as an experience. There is compensation for teaching the class. So, depending on the term, if it's winter, you could do course release depending on your chair's approval, or you could get the salary for the adjunct level salary for that course. Or if it's summer, the only option is payment, is salary, but that is certainly a possibility. And then in addition, we ensure that elements of your experience are covered. So your transportation there, your flight, your housing is covered, all of the activities that are part of the program are covered. And then as funds allow, we've been trying to also build in a graduate or a program assistant to be available, because our model, we want to move away from this model of one faculty person leading one group. We really want to have somebody serve as a backup, as a support, so that you're not alone in country. And then in terms of, CUNY international travel guidelines, there is a overarching set of guidelines that I'll share with every faculty member who's interested in pursuing this, just so that you have a sense. They are quite long, but there's certainly areas that really apply to you that you want to focus on, just about what does it mean to be a program leader, a faculty leader. There is an element of student support that goes beyond the academics, and that's really important to bear in mind. I think my next slide. Yes, Monica, I'm about to turn to you. And I'd love to have Monica just share a little bit about your experience leading a faculty-led program, and just highlight for us in your experience, what are some of the positives? What are some of the challenges? Just anything that you feel comfortable sharing with everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you, Julie. And Julie, by the way, has been an amazing co-leader of the study abroad in Italy, in Florence, with me last year. And it worked phenomenally well. And that's a thing that can be done also. So two professors, teaching one after the other. But I'm going to talk about the experience that has been immortalized in these pictures. January 2024, Florence. The course is from, it lasted 3 weeks, more or less, from January 3rd to January 20th. And it was very intense. There was a class every day from Monday through Friday, 2 hours. And then we also went to visit in the afternoon museums and churches in Florence, the Uffizi, the Accademia, and Santa Croce. Now, this program has been around forever. My colleague Paolo Fasoli and Pino Di Scipio, the late Pino Di Scipio, created it. And it is not connected to the university, but we do everything in a hotel with which we have very good relationships. And we have a room and we have the class there. And I also would like to do, to shout out to Sarah, because both Julie and I dealt with different directors of the study abroad, and they were all very good. But Sarah brought such a level of professionality, devotion, and involvement in the study abroad that is unparalleled, and that also it translates into better communication, and also more students coming, because there is much more publicity, and students are really flock to the program, because everybody wants to go to Florence, apparently. So talking about the advantages, for me, I am a Renaissance person. I'm in the humanities. The students who are in this class, and I had quite a bit this year, there were 20 students, and we had to send away a few of them after we reached the 20 the threshold of 20 students. is that they all come from, very few come from the humanities. So this year I had a few, one person history, another in history and anthropology, but in general they come from STEM disciplines, but they have such a passion for Florence that they want to be in Florence, and what they love is the fact that they can read sections from authors who wrote between 1300 and 1600, but I can also see, the places that these authors are referring to, the wonderful artists and sculptures that, lived in this period, such as Michelangelo, Botticelli, etc. And some of them really are also enthralled by the architecture. One of the students, who is a biochemistry major, fell in love with the Duomo of Brunelleschi. And so it's a really fantastic class to teach for a professor, because you meet very engaging students who ask you also questions that are not the natural ones that a professional, a person who works in the field will ask you, or a major in Italian or Romance languages. So that is also that is one of the things that I love. The other thing is that if you see on the page, the lower, the picture in the lower corner on the right, you get to really bond with the students. I'm not saying that I am their friend, because I'm not, but the students really look up to you, and that they create a social community. Julie and I last year created like a WhatsApp group, and it's a wonderful way to communicate with them. And but we also communicate outside. For instance, the study abroad program gave us a chance to give us money to have a goodbye meal. And this is where you see here, we went to a pizzeria nearby the hotel, and people are enjoying food, that they were, exchanging ideas, and they asked me things about what is your favorite type of music, etc., etc. So I really liked this opportunity also to meet students outside of the class, and besides, meeting them for museums and for visits to churches. The overall experience for me has always been excellent. I started teaching study abroad in the study abroad program in Florence since 2016. As of now, I taught 4 times. The last 2 were last year co-taught with Julie, and this year I taught by myself. Yes, and I had amazing experiences, and I see that Julie is it's a course taught in English, so it's in Italian culture, Italian history, but it's taught in English. And there are also some people who may know a little bit of Italian. I had a student who is in the art history department, and he was his family comes from Italy, so I could have wonderful conversations with him, even though he's not a minor or a major in Italian, but he's in art history. And then I also had some people who were currently taking some courses in Italian, or had taken courses in Italian, but they were eager also to learn Italian, just to communicate on a regular basis. It's like to ask for a piece of pizza, or, it's like to have, I don't know, a panino with prosciutto crudo, etc. So in class, what you get is also a constellation of different perspectives from science to art. And that is also what makes the class very interesting. What are the challenges? Well, the challenges are that you basically you are by yourself in the sense that you deal with 20 students, and they're not minors, but you are responsible, or when you are in Florence, for their well-being. So it's not that you have to be with them all the time. If something happens, for instance, this year, a student lost a wallet, had to bring them to the Carabinieri. Another one was very sick. And so there was a back and forth with Sara. And then I talked with the doctor. If anything, happens in the hotel, I am the spokesperson, of course, because and I have to make the ultimate decision. I wouldn't say that is a challenge, but it's a responsibility, of course. Our program, we decided to have like an emergency person. That is paid very little, but enough, to come to either Firenze or to a nearby city, so that this person can come if there is something happens while if there is a real emergency. And so last year and this year we had a graduate students who teach in our department. I think we have to fine tune that part. I mean, I talked with Sara. It's not fault of anybody's fault, but I think that I realized, I mean, that there are some issues that have to be addressed. Challenges are also created by the city. Florence is a city that is beautiful, but is sometimes not very friendly to tourists and to big groups. So that's another issue. Tickets and for large people, for a large group of people, maybe some a little bit challenging. And I would say also, you have to be ready to use an enormous amount of energy. I am a very energetic, very enthusiastic person. I've been called, the battery bunny, with an enormous amount of energy, but even I, at the end of this 3 weeks, exhausted, because I mean, you teach every day, you bring the students out to see art, etc. It is a very involved, experience. But I and I read Uchenna, is she says it's an amazing experience. Yes, what I should say is that I kept in contact with some students. One of them asked me for a letter of recommendation. Another one was at the major fair day. She was with another program, but they couldn't say, enough good things about the program, and about the experience, about the life-changing experience, really, that they had. One of the students decided to minor, unfortunately, not in a Romance languages, but in English, even though she's in a STEM program. And also, they value the importance of the humanities. So there's students who are in the computer science, accounting, etc. They told me that really this class opened their eyes to humanities, because some of them never took a class, like that. And I first were kind of bored, but then they experienced this sort of a revelation of epiphany, and they really enjoyed the class, and they came out with a totally different perspective of why, a class in the humanities is so important. And so that I stop here. I hope I didn't talk too much, but that is, the pros and the cons of my experience. Thank you.
Monica, thank you so much for sharing that. It's really, for me, it's crucial to hear your perspective. And I'm so glad, with Julie, with Monica, and again, with other folks on this call, we do have a lot of collaborative conversations before, during, after these experiences. So I see it as a really important part of my job to make sure that all of you, again, whether you're supporting a student going abroad or you're doing a faculty-led program, that, we're in almost constant conversation, especially leading up to a program, when you're there, and then when you come back, so we can assess and really understand what went well, what didn't go well. And I want to just add one thing to Monica's point about, she spoke of STEM students being open to the humanities. I also am really excited and encouraged to see, I've been getting more outreach from folks in STEM fields at Hunter to think about study abroad programs. And that is something that I also really love to see, because I think it's really important for us to envision all academic disciplines as having study abroad opportunities. And again, faculty-led programs are a great way to make it happen, because let's say you have a 200 level bio course or a 200 level statistics course that you can teach somewhere else in the world that has academic and cultural relevance. That's really incredible. And that's an opportunity that many of our STEM students, we're still trying to find ways to get them these opportunities. So I love to see that. And again, with Carolyn's son, who's on the call, we've worked with nursing students, both in the bachelor's and the master's program, also some pre-nursing students, to have, yay, hi Carrie, to have some shadowing experiences abroad. And we're also building that potentially into a course as well. So lots of different opportunities, regardless of your discipline. I think there are advantages to the faculty-led model, and there are advantages to finding those ways your students can get abroad. All right. Just a few pointers to think about before I shift to another topic. I would say that consider your destination and timing if you're thinking about a program. Winter and summer are two very different types of terms. And I would say that summer in general, sometimes there can be a little bit more competition in students' lives for different things they need to do. So for example, internships, jobs, maybe they want to take a different summer session course at Hunter. So if you're planning a course in the summer, really give it some strategic thought. Can it fit neatly into session summer 1, summer 2, summer 3? Is it going to compete with something else? Try to think about some of those things beforehand. Winter, January, is shorter as a term, but it also, presents, sometimes there's a climate weather question, always an important consideration. I know that might sound banal, but it does it does impact students' thinking. Go somewhere warm in the winter, they're happy, they're going to sign up. Also, depending on the time of year, pricing for tickets will vary depending on your destination. So give some thought to that as well. And I also really want to emphasize, before you sort of embark on this, who's your target audience? Who will take your course? It's ideal to sort of stay in a range where either, let's say you have a course that fulfills a flexible core or core requirement, you're opening that course up to so many students. You're not limiting it to majors or minors or specialists, in an area. So the broader reach you can have, within reason, the better. And also, if you have some feeder courses, okay, if they take English 220 and then they're going to come right into my class, that's a great way also to sort of think about who your target audience should be. Of course, destination will influence cost. So as much as we love London, it's a really expensive place to plan a program. So we want to think about those things when we're planning. Sometimes smaller cities, lower cost destinations tend to be really attractive, because we can build a budget that is more in the range of costs that students can really support with or without scholarships. If you have connections abroad, and this will feed into my brief element about international research, think about connections you have abroad that you want to leverage. We certainly, of course, have a really broad range of connections on the study abroad provider side. So connections with our universities abroad or partner providers. But let's say you have that collaborator in Scotland or Tokyo or wherever that you guys want to build something together. That's something to really think about as well. Please consult with our office. I have guides. I'm happy to do workshops on demand about this. I also am starting this term doing orientation and training for all faculty about to lead programs. So you will not be alone. You will be trained before you go. You'll be supported before and during and after. And definitely please reach out to your colleagues who have done this before. Monica, Julie, Carrie, I know others, and I'm volunteering you all, so forgive me if I'm doing that out of turn. But there are certainly more colleagues at Hunter who have led programs before that you can consult with. But definitely speak to your colleagues about their recommendations. All right, so I'm keeping my eye on the time, and we've got a little less than 10 minutes left. I want to shift a bit to COIL and to international research. But just to speak a little bit about COIL, Collaborative Online International Learning. This is something that is very much initiated by you at the faculty level. So it's not necessarily something systematic that the Education Abroad office initiates, but we definitely support it. So let's say that you do have a collaborator abroad. A perfect example I would say is Jennifer Newman. Again, I think she might still be on the call, as well as Maria Hernandez Ojeda, working with faculty in the Canary Islands. Their students jointly worked on a digital humanities project where they were annotating a poem together. So students in the Canary Islands, students at Hunter were actually doing a digital humanities sort of asynchronous and sometimes synchronous meeting program. And Jennifer, forgive me if I'm misrepresenting that in any way, but essentially it was a way for folks to work together internationally, and to not be in the same place necessarily. But it's definitely a way for you to just have those international connections. Another example that I'll mention is our Japanese faculty have worked with Osaka Metropolitan University to have a Japanese language table. It's a virtual language table. I don't know how they manage the time difference because it's a pretty big one, but they do. And they get to actually have students meet with each other. I have had students in my office come to me and ask, can I please study abroad at Osaka Metropolitan University so that, I could meet my friends that I have met at this language table. So, there are certainly, I would say, a lot of these things that are not necessarily formalized, right? These are not from the top down in any way. They're not coming from our office. But if you have these collaborations, please feel free to not only leverage them, but also reach out to us if you want to have some support, maybe that structural support. Maybe you want to build a trip out of it. Maybe you want to make that online learning go a little bit further, be a little deeper. We are definitely here to support that as well. And I'm going to flip through just a couple of slides with screenshots. There are lots of CUNY-wide resources in this realm, and there are other campuses. So I'm going to say Queens College, for example, actually has a little bit more faculty and staff devoted to COIL initiatives. So they've built it out just a bit more than Hunter has. So definitely reach out to Queens. But please, this isn't a hyperlink, unfortunately, but you can certainly look at the COIL sites through CUNY. Here's just a quick screenshot. I honestly think if you do COIL CUNY in a Google search, you'll come up with these pages pretty quickly. And I can also share the links, maybe Julie and Lena, if you send an email after, I'll share the links with you. But there's also an academic commons page devoted to COIL through CUNY. So you can use this to sort of jump in, see what projects folks are working on. And again, if you have an existing collaboration or partnership that you want to leverage, this could be a really nice way to just get the ball rolling. It's also a good preliminary step for, as I mentioned, faculty-led trip or faculty-led program if you decide you want to, materialize a virtual partnership. All right. And the last thing that I'll touch upon, and I don't mean to give this short shrift by any means, but I do want to just share a little bit about international research collaborations. And this might be something that, again, many of you in your work already have. You might have established collaborations, partners abroad, or folks you've written papers or published papers with or research. But I'm here to say first that if you have those existing partnerships and you wish to, again, grow them, explore if they can go further or deeper in any way, please let me know because we can discuss what that looks like. We don't necessarily have a pathway that's like, oh, do this step and that step and that step quite yet. But our office really wants to support these kinds of initiatives, and we do. That being said, let's say that you don't have an existing partnership, but you'd like to sort of explore that. Again, we have this network of exchange partner universities. So we have 8 different institutions around the globe that we work with, as well as all of our study abroad provider partners. And they're in the realm of, again, a lot of them, the providers are not universities necessarily. They're all accredited and they have schools of record, but they do have a lot of faculty that work for them and that do research as they are also leading programs abroad. So if you are seeking some kind of connection in a destination, please let me know and I can look into our network, see what exists, see who I can connect you with, and I'm more than happy to make introductions. And certainly, in the field of international education, a lot of the people that we overlap with are, academics in the sort of traditional sense of the word, faculty, teaching, but we also have a lot of folks in our network who wear these multiple hats, right? Who research, who lead programs, who teach at their home institutions. So I might know someone that can connect you. So please let me know, or I can connect you to someone as well. And just a heads up about some of the resources that we're aware of, at least in this realm. The annual conferences that I tend to attend, which are my professional organizations for Ed Abroad, are called the Forum for Education Abroad and NAFSA. And those are two conferences that you might want to look into if you are seeking to expand partnerships, more particularly NAFSA, because that is actually a meeting of a lot of institutions from abroad, universities from abroad come to the United States. They're all in one place. It's usually a 3-day conference. It is in New Orleans in late May. So I will be there if anyone decides they want to go. But it's not just focused on study abroad. It's really focused on international and US partnerships across universities. So I recommend checking it out if it's something that you want to explore. And let me know if you decide you want to come with me to New Orleans this May. I would love some company. There will be several CUNY campuses going. And in addition to that, in terms of funding, I am working hard to sort of expand the funding opportunities that we have at Hunter. I'd say students remain like the biggest focus in terms of scholarship growth, but I always want to look into other options as well. The things that do exist so far, to my knowledge, are things you are likely already aware of, but I do want to highlight them. The PSC CUNY Research Awards, as well as the internal Hunter faculty travel grants. Please do use those. If you're using them for anything international, please let me know, because I do have these layers of support in terms of the insurance coverage, in terms of just any sort of pre-departure support that I can provide, training if you need it, cultural resources, anything like that. We're available to provide as well. So I realize, I'm doing this kind of briefly in a quick slide, but please know that this is an area that we also can support you in, and I'm more than happy to have a longer conversation about it with anyone as well. All right. So as we wrap, just a quick summary, of what I see as the role of education abroad in general, and also specifically at Hunter. We do have this really interesting intersection of being, in the middle of academics and also administration. So lots of what we do, as I highlighted earlier, kind of overlaps and intersects, which for me is what keeps me coming back to this job every day. We serve so many audiences. We serve you, we serve students, we serve parents, colleagues, partners. And we also have all these hats that we wear. Again, I think the longer I'm at Hunter, the more I'm, thinking like, wow, we all have, I don't know, 10, 15 hats that we wear. So these are the hats that I've chosen to highlight for us. But our goals really are, we want students to have safe, successful learning experiences abroad. We want that academic continuity to be key and central to what we do, so that students do progress towards their degree. And then they also get to really be embedded in your departments, in your work, so that it's really an interwoven part of the Hunter experience. I don't want this to be a separate thing that's apart from what all of us do. It's part of what we do, right? It's part of what students do. So I'm trying really hard for that integration. And then also, just the benefits to students are so vast, broadened perspectives, the professional opportunities that will come after they have this experience, not to mention the personal growth. And of course, the goal of having our students feel like they are global citizens, right? Understanding the world. We couldn't be at a more crucial time for students to understand the world better, and also understand themselves better through the lens of these experiences. And that, again, is what drives me. That's my mission in this work, and keeps me coming back to the table day in and day out, as well as all of you. I really am so thrilled to work with the Hunter community on this. I'll leave you with my contact information. And, again, I know we're short on time. I don't know if we can extend by a couple minutes, but I'm happy to do questions. And just, find us in Hunter East 14th floor. Emma and I are right around the corner from research administration. So if you have a grant and then you want to come and stop by and say hi, we're happy to chat with you. We're right there. But also you can reach me on my direct email address. I have SC9851 is my Hunter net ID. Follow us on Instagram if you're there, because that's where we tend to highlight student stories. You get to see the photos, the videos, the takeovers, which we try to do every term with students. But I will leave it there. And thank you all so much. Thank you to Julie, to Lena, to ACERT for welcoming me today. And yeah, happy to, again, we're right at 12:59, almost 1 o'clock. So I'm happy to answer any questions if we've got a couple of minutes to do so.